Peterson is my opponent, but I will not say maybe anything original if I say this. But, you know, it's the same as with Donald Trump. I'm deeply suspicious of this hatred, but at the same time fascination with Donald Trump. You know, all left liberals say, let's now forget about old hatreds. We have a fascist enemy there. In some sense, it's true. But at the same time, my God, we should begin with self-criticism. What was wrong with our liberal consensus that it disintegrated and opened up the space for this new right-wing populism and so on and so on? Here, maybe, I have one respectful disagreement with Jordan Peterson, insofar as he is a right-winger, but listen, he attacks something that he calls postmodern neo-Marxism. I don't see, I know what he empirically means, all this politically correct, fuller resentment, but the term is for me such an obvious nonsense. If you mean by postmodernism, this historicist relativism no longer taking old values seriously, just cynically playing with it, then Donald Trump is the ultimate postmodern president. It's an insult. I mean, compare as characters Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is an old-fashioned moralist and so on. Donald Trump is an obscene postmodern abomination and so on and so on. Also, you know, Jordan Peterson, in some sense, I appreciate his work. You know, he is, at least in contrast to many lazy leftists, really, although I don't know how much he is really doing it, really working with people as a clinician. This is not to make fun of. So again, here I appreciate Jordan Peterson, but I wouldn't, but he says two things. First, he buys this into this topic of we need some transcendent values, higher costs. I would say, yes, but we live in a modern era where, first, you cannot, like, the definition of modernity with Kant and so on is that you cannot directly refer to some transcendent value system. We are responsible for it. You cannot say, I follow this because it's tradition. That's the definition of modernity. You have to reason. You have to ground it. Second problem I have with him, when he emphasizes this moment that against the hedonist civilization and so on, we need myths, narratives, consistent stories. Yes, but to say this is not enough for me. Stories are ideology. And, okay, speaking about stories, just a brief point, Hitler was one of the greatest storytellers of the 20th century. What did he do? Germany in the 1920s, total ideological confusion, people well at a loss, economic crisis, what they perceived as moral degradation, what's going on? Hitler provided a perfect, simple story. It's all the Jewish plot. And all of a sudden, ordinary Germans lived in a meaningful universe. Second problem for me with Peterson is you know, but that's, I will just hint at it, not to talk too much. It's his admiration of Dostoevsky, you know, the line Dostoevsky, Solzhenitsyn. How can he take seriously the total bullshit of Dostoevsky, which is, if there is no God, then everything is permitted. If today's experience shows anything, it's that the exact opposite is true. If there is a God for you in the fundamentalist way, so that you perceive yourself as the willing instrument, executor of God's will, then everything is permitted to you. So again, just at this level, I would complicate things. Another difference with him is that I don't think that today the problem of our societies, even if you accept this conservative vision, moral values are disintegrating, we live in a hedonist society. No, we don't. We live in a society where all the inner tensions and of hedonist ethics of happiness exploded. The reason I don't totally trust political correctness is that it often falls into the trap of resentment, which means that, you know, the logic of resentment is, you know, I'll put it like this. We learned from already great German idealists, from Freud and so on, that Schelling puts it wonderfully, where he says that true evil is more spiritual than goodness. Goodness always has a certain openness towards naivety, nature, and so on. True evil is when destroying your opponent, hurting him, means to you more than your own happiness. Evil is not egotism. Egotism is, I hate you, let's take it. I hate you so much that I'm ready to suffer only if I know that you will suffer more. You know, we Slovenes identify as misers, and we have one beautiful anecdote. A divine, almighty person approaches a Slovene farmer and tells him, I will do to you whatever you want, but be careful, I will do twice the same to your neighbor. You know, the Slovene farmer answers immediately, fine, take one of my eyes. So, you know, and this is the form of evil. It's important to know, so again, hedonism is not evil. What we live today is the era where, again, this inner tension of hedonism. And this is why, for me as a Freudian, it's not difficult to explain all the paradoxes. Officially, we live in a permissive hedonist society. But then, at the same time, we live in a society where, okay, the motto is enjoy, realize your potentials, but then it's so hyper-regulated with all politically correct rules and so on and so on. So no wonder that the more our society is permissive, more there is impotence and frigidity and so on and so on. So you see, we just have to open ourselves to all these paradoxes, and maybe it's much more complex. My difference from Peterson is rather that I think he appears to me, again, a little bit too naive conservative. I think that it's not only that we cannot return to some old stable values, it's that if you do it, you become a postmodern clown. So my reproach to today's fundamentalists, it's not you are too fundamentalist, it's that if you look at the form, how they act, it's a big postmodern ego trip. They are not really what they claim to be. I'm not measuring them by my open democratic standards. I'm measuring them by their own performance, how they act, but maybe I should stop. I talked